USA's Gold Cup group is revealed. MLS is still exploring a European calendar switch. And what do the impressive USL TV ratings mean? That and more on Friday's Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show. You made it. This is Morning Kick Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's favorite country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and most importantly, Friday. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. David Peckham crowed us in. Hopefully, feeling good. Thank you so much for tuning in, MK Ultras. Hope you're well. What's up with you, Mr. Davis? You have a fine-looking shirt on today.
I was going to say that we're more like the Vanderpump Rules of countries instead of the most favorite country. We're kind of like the most dramatic and messy country right now, but I guess there's something to be said for that in 2025. Yes, I'm wearing a Phoenix Rising shirt that I have that they gave me. If they would like to send me another Phoenix Rising shirt, I would happily take it because
you like the updated version, eh?
While I respect everything Phoenix Rising has done, this is not the most this is not the shirt I would pull off the rack.
It doesn't seem to have the same sort of details as the Ford Madisons and the others that you've been rocking lately.
It's a blank slate is what I'm saying. And it's just this and just not even, it's not even you know what I'm saying. It's a shirt is what I'm saying. And we are celebrating Phoenix Rising on this show a little bit because when we talk USL Championship television ratings, Phoenix Rising was involved in the game that delivered said ratings. So reason to wear it. I rocked San Antonio FC on the Best Soccer Show last night because they were the other team involved in that. So now I've doubled up. I've gotten both of them in. So shout out.
Do you think that the clean slate of that shirt allowed them to rise with their design quality as they progressed?
I think we should move on to whatever else is coming up on the show is what I think.
Well, fair enough. Urias said it in the chat. Come on, MK Ultras. Let's get some energy here on Friday morning. And the best thing to do to show your enthusiasm is hit the subscribe button. We are inching our way to 2,000 subscribers. So thank you, everyone, for subscribing so far. And if you haven't already, please do so now. The show only improves and is more fun to participate in with more subscribers. And there's also something new over at the YouTube, right?
Yeah, we've got membership set up on the YouTube. One level, just making it super simple, low cost, less than a coffee. Like less than I don't think you can get a coffee for $4. So we've got you set up to be a member for $4. A couple of custom emojis. One might be my face. I don't know if anybody really wants that, but it's there should you want it. Also Chuck Blazer, because we always need more Chuck Blazer in our lives, right? Plus, so we're going to be, as we make stuff, sometimes there's going to be bonus stuff that we can't put up as part of the regular show. That stuff will be early access for you. For example, just to give you an example, this week I did an interview with Jeremiah O'Shan of Sounder at Heart. The first half of that interview was all about the growth of pro soccer in the Pacific Northwest, new teams, whether or not Pro Rel coming to USL was going to spark a boom in soccer in the Northwest. But the second half of that conversation was all about the Seattle Sounders wanting to build their own stadium and get out of Lumen Field. And Jeremiah has some pretty strong opinions about whether that would be a good idea. Now, that video is up live for everybody to watch on the channel. So you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. It's very informative. But that's the kind of thing that you'll have access to if you join as a member before anybody else. Plus, go read the other perks. They're there.
You can follow along with the show on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. We've been getting some good comments on there. You can also write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. There's also another way to support the show, coffee.com/morningkickaround. And I do owe a few folks a shout out for contributing. So big thanks to Huey, Mike Standish, Jonathan Moth, Brian T, Leo C, Hector, Terrence, Mike Thomas, Luke Zagorski, and Thomas Pinzone. Thank you so much for contributing there on coffee.com/morningkickaround. So you can help support the show via YouTube and coffee.com/morningkickaround. You ready to start the show?
I am, but one more thing. Shout out to everybody. Nate's been a regular here in the morning on Morning
Yeah,
Kickaround. So I'm
go Nate.
gonna address what Nate is saying here. When are they going to make a Chuck Blazer movie, and will it be a comedy, thriller, or tragedy? Yeah,
Big
I don't know if
question.
you're joking about this, Nate, but I swear this isn't. This is a Mandela effect or something, but I swear that Will Ferrell was once attached to a movie about Chuck Blazer. And
That that seems too fitting. I can just imagine him in his like loft apartment. Where didn't he have a cat apartment in New York or something?
I believe, and again, could be Mandela effect. I believe that he had 2 apartments in Trump Tower specifically. I think it was Trump Tower where he had 2 apartments, and one of them, yes, was for his cats. One was for his cats. He also had someone on retainer to take care of his bird. So Chuck Blazer, he was out there, man. He was on his rascal. He was traveling the world on FIFA's dime. He was doing it.
I can just imagine a decrepit looking Will Ferrell like scooting along in like a rascal that's running out of battery, and he's like trying to get his cat to a cat dish or something, and it's a big gnarly mess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's fun. I think American soccer needs something to dig their teeth into
Well,
like that.
remember that on towards the very end of his life, I think on his deathbed, as a matter of fact, Chuck Blazer turned state evidence. He went and ratted on everybody. So that movie's got an ending all lined up.
So what's like the Chuck Blazer equivalent to like the ending of Goodfellas when he's like standing in front of the new construction suburban house? Like what is the state's evidence version there?
I mean, again, Chuck is no longer with us, so I don't know how you end that movie if he doesn't die in the movie. So
fair enough. And it's like I bet you were wondering how I got here. Chuck Blazer. All right. Let's get into Friday's action. Here's long balls here on Morning Kick Around. Long ball number 1 here on Morning Kick Around for April 11th, Friday, April 11th. Let's not forget that. My name's Robert. He's Jason Davis leading the show today. USA will they know who their Gold Cup opponents are. The draw was last night in I'd say less than entertaining presentation, but the United States this summer in the 2026 Gold Cup 2025 Gold Cup, will face Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, and Saudi Arabia.
Rob, pull it together, man. I know it's Friday. Pull it together.
I must have gone. I went momentarily dyslexic there, where the end of the sentence moved in front of the beginning of the sentence.
I see.
Because the sentence where it read, the group members, it said in preparation for the 2026 World Cup. But for clarity, right. United States men's national team know their 2025 Gold Cup opponents, featuring Haiti, Trinidad, and Tobago, way over there on the right-hand side of your screen for Group D. What do you think of the draw, Mr. Davis?
It could be worse, I suppose. It is a Gold Cup. You should be getting out of your group no matter what. There shouldn't be any real concern about that. I mean, Mexico, Canada, Panama, and the United States were the pot 1 teams, and then everybody else fills in behind. I think of that second group, I'm not sure Haiti is the worst, but they're not the best either. You could be okay with that. I don't know why it has to be TNT. Like why
it's always TNT.
Always running into the soccer warriors over there. And then Saudi Arabia as the guest team, sure. Why not? I mean, are they good? No. Are they bad? No, neither are they bad. So I don't know. You think about the rankings of the teams that the United States pulled out of this. Haiti is ranked number 83. They're actually outside of Curacao. I think. Okay, hold on. Let me actually get this right. Haiti's above Trinidad and Tobago. Makes sense. Pot 2 team. So they're ranked 83. Trinidad and Tobago's at 100. Saudi Arabia, they are 58. So 58, 83, whatever, 100. It's doable for the United States. It could be worse.
I've got a bit of a Shannon Freud sort of question for you. Out of those 3 opponents, which traveling fans will have the hardest time getting into the country?
Oh no, that's very sad question that you just asked, and I don't want to think about it very much. But yeah.
So who's Mexico going to play? instead.
Mexico's got Costa Rica, Suriname, and the Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic, a little bit on the rise, still ranked 139th in the world. So, and again, we know FIFA rankings are kind of nonsense, but we still have to go by
Rough picture. It
something.
gives you a rough picture.
Yeah, Suriname is 137. So Mexico gets the 137th and the 139th ranked teams in the world. Costa Rica number 54 at the moment. That's pretty low for them. They aren't typically that bad, but and they'll give Mexico a fight, but Mexico's going to skate through. I think Canada's got a tough out, actually. You look at that group with Honduras, El Salvador, and Curacao. Curacao can play a little bit. They're ranked 90 in the world. El Salvador's ranked 81, so not that much higher up the chart, and Honduras is 75. So no powerhouses, obviously, but still could be a challenge for Canada. Again, one thing that is sort of out here is who's coming to this player-wise and who's not.
That is the big question.
You got a Club World Cup happening this summer. Are the players who are attached to Club World Cup teams, because FIFA obviously wants to make that tournament a big deal, and because they want to make it a big deal, the clubs are allowed to turn down, or players are allowed to turn down international call-ups, which normally wouldn't be the case, right? So let's see. You've got Juventus coming to America for the Club World Cup. Weston McKennie, Tim Weah for the United States of men's national team. Will they be available to Mauricio Pochettino? I think that is a significant question right now.
What's the priority? It's such an odd moment for
and Dortmund, by the way.
soccer.
If Gio Reyna's still a Dortmund player, he could be playing for Dortmund and not the United States. But sorry.
Yeah, that's a total bizarre, because it's kind of hard to keep track 100% who's in the Club World Cup, and then for there to be a summer tournament, and then to be kind of not sure who's going to come. A conflict between club and country in the summer is this unprecedented? It's definitely unusual, and it's hard to see like who would be. Where do your loyalties lie? Obviously, it's the last competitive. Don't forget, it's the last competitive tournament before the 2026 World Cup, which is how I got garbled at the start of this thing anyway. So there is obviously that level of importance, but there's a lot of money, and it's probably hard to say if your club is like, we want you at the Club World Cup. It's probably pretty hard to say no to your employer in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably the right way to think about it. I mean, we kind of don't know how the clubs are taking this, what they're thinking about it. I mean, there are clubs where if they could win this thing, they would celebrate it. But if you're concerned about the health of your players going into a new season, if you're, say, Juve, right, and we don't know how this season's going to play out for Juve, if they miss the Champions League, obviously there's going to be a lot of pressure to find a way back into that group for next season. So do you bring your top guys, and what effectively is the preseason tour period of your build up to the next season? I honestly don't know that question, answer that question. Like, I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see how it pans out, because obviously it's a very unusual situation with the expansion of the Club World Cup and then the Gold Cup being somewhat important in front of a World Cup year, and then the whole international versus club conflict. So we shall see how that pans out, and then I'm sure we'll cover it here if there's some sort of statement made or something like that. But I have a feeling it'll probably be a case-to-case basis based on the player and the clubs involved. Moving on to long ball number 2 for Friday, April 11th, CONCACAF Champions Cup midweek action. Another Wednesday. We've been blessed with 2 midweek game windows in a row of various competitions here in North America that have been very exciting. Vancouver win late, as does Inter Miami, and fireworks in both of these games, Jason.
Yeah, I stayed up and watched Inter Miami and LAFC, and wow, that got my full value out of that one.
That's worth staying. It's not always staying up late on these games, but that one was worth it.
No, absolutely. That was 100% worth it. It was testy. It was contentious. It had a goal taken off the board from a quick free kick restart by Messi. We had Javier Mascherano going apoplectic, which is pretty much his state. I think Javier Mascherano is always moving in some way, shape, or form.
If we've learned one thing about his management style, he's obviously very early in his management career. I think we've learned that he is excitable as a manager.
excitable does not go far enough, and I can't find the better word. We're going to go with excitable for the moment. But
Yeah.
excitable, like, oh yeah, he's he gets emotional and gets loud. No, Javier Mascherano was at 11 all the time, and he was certainly at 11 in that game. You had David Beckham there lurking in the background as things were going down. Lionel Messi scores a very Lionel Messi goal. Then we get the penalty, which is just such a tough way for LAFC to lose, Rob.
Mhm.
That there's just this moment when the ball's falling out of the sky. You didn't get the clearance right in the first place. Let's be clear about that. The ball is falling out of the sky, and two LAFC players bump into one another, the two center backs, Long and Marlon, and the ball just hits Marlon's hand, and now we're going to the spot. I mean, it's so silly. And then obviously Denny Bouanga had chances to actually win it for LAFC and couldn't do it.
Bouanga was a fun watch. I really enjoyed what he was doing, and he's definitely getting up to full speed this year. That's pretty clear and obvious. And then more than just a little bit of a push and shove at the end there. There was some real wrestling and fighting going on.
Again, Marlon was not happy. He dumps Messi on a potential breakaway for Lionel Messi. By the way, at one point there was also a foot race. I don't know who it was on LAFC, but a foot race between Lionel Messi and an LAFC player when LA was pushing for a goal. Messi's still on the field. He plays the entire match because I guess that you're not going to take him off if it's a meaningful game. And Messi got roasted in this foot race, which I was like, oh yeah, he's not a young guy. I don't know if he was ever the fastest dude on the field anyway, but he got absolutely taken down in this foot race. And then, yeah, you had Marlon dumping Messi. You had some angry people. Again, no Sergio Busquets, who was suspended for this one. Of course, Inter Miami was upset that Nathan Ordaz, who scored the goal in LA to give LAFC the advantage, wasn't sent off for a hands to the face situation. So it was drama.
Yeah, that LAFC player not getting sent off and then scoring right after. That was some cosmic irony going on there. And then you mentioned David Beckham earlier. He looked, when they were trailing in the first half of this game, he looked the most stressed I think I've ever seen. That he looked like more human than I've ever seen David Beckham look. He was genuinely stressed when they were down by 2 early in that game.
Whatever you can say, I want to say about David Beckham. He is definitely a guy who still has that competitive juices.
Oh, he cares. He cares. But we should not move on without honoring the accomplishments of the Vancouver Whitecaps. They are leading the way in Major League Soccer, and they've advanced in CONCACAF Champions Cup. Son of Berhalter and Blackman coming up with late ones. It looked like they'd blown it late to Pumas, and then they get the additional extra time winner to come away with a victory that probably not too many folks saw coming. I think we thought that the Mexican side was going to do the traditional second leg, put the foot down on the gas pedal, but
we had a precedent. Vancouver. We had a precedent because Vancouver did this in the last round. They did it to Monterrey. They drew at home and they went on the road and they drew on the road. But because they drew on the road with more goals, they advanced on away goals. And it was the same thing here. I mean, it was 1-1 after the first leg in Vancouver. So Pumas had 1 away goal, and it was 2-2 down there in Mexico, which gave Vancouver 2 away goals and 3-3 on aggregate. There you go, straight through. And this is an interesting moment for the Whitecaps. I'll throw this up here. Maplewood Vineyards. Now the Whitecaps just need a proper soccer stadium. This happening, right? And now the Whitecaps will face Inter Miami in the semifinal. So we're guaranteed an MLS team in the final, which I'm sure CONCACAF is thrilled about. Obviously, Major League Soccer is going to be thrilled about it. Inter Miami will be favorites, but I wouldn't look past the Whitecaps to get this done. But the Whitecaps are on the sale on the block, right? They're up for sale. There's a big sign out front that says for sale, Vancouver Whitecaps, one MLS team. There's talk about building a stadium in Vancouver. How far along they are with that, I couldn't tell you. Whether or not red tape will scuttle any ideas, I couldn't tell you. BC Place is not a proper home. I did a radio show with Adrian Heath this week, former head coach of Minnesota, a guy who knows this league. And he told me, I was off air, so I don't know if I'm supposed to. He told me that Vancouver surface, he's like, I don't know how they get away with it. It is the worst surface you could possibly want to play soccer on. Everybody knows this is not a tenable situation long term for them. It's probably why they're up for sale, because the current ownership group really just doesn't want to go diving into the process of trying to figure out how to build a stadium. There's the rumors around they could be moved. We've got, there's noise coming out of Indianapolis about what they want to do to build a stadium, and they maybe want to try to attract an MLS team rather than try to elevate Indy 11 or build a stadium for Indy 11 who could be stuck in USL Championship. That's bad framing. Could still be a USL Championship team when the mayor of Indy is one of these guys who's like, no, we need a Major League Soccer team. Okay, gotcha, bud. So I don't know. This run, does it have any impact on the Whitecaps getting their situation sorted in Vancouver so they don't get moved, because nobody wants to see clubs move?
This has the feeling of 5 years in the future, us looking back like, wasn't that a nice way to end it in Vancouver when they went on that heroic run? But I don't want to, have any preliminary funerals there. But we shall see what happens with Vancouver. CONCACAF Champions Cup semifinal first leg, Wednesday, April 23rd and 24th. Tigres versus Cruz Azul, and Vancouver versus Inter Miami. Long ball number 3 here for Friday, April 11th. It is time for the Fab Four of American soccer games over the weekend. You ready for this, Jason?
Yes, give me the Fab Four, Rob. Let's work through them.
Want to go one by one, or do you want me to rattle them off and come back to it?
No, let's start with number 1, and then we'll get to number 2 and 3 and 4.
All right, number 1 for the Fab Four games of the American soccer weekend. We start in NWSL, San Diego Wave versus the KC Current.
Yeah, this is look, San Diego is not one of the best teams in NW. I mean, it's early, right? Let's throw that caveat out. It's early because we're still just getting our feet underneath them. This is match day 4, right? But San Diego is not one of the top teams in the league, but they are on 4 points after 3 games. They've got a win, a draw, a loss. They're 0 in terms of goal difference. Meanwhile, Kansas City Current, of course, a finalist in recent years. They built that pretty stadium there in Kansas City, so they've got momentum behind them in terms of that. They are unbeaten. They have won 3 times. They are +7 in goal difference, and we know that they have star power across that team in Kansas City. Players that you want to keep an eye on for U.S. women's national team reasons, like Claire Hutton, who just played in this last window, Alana Cook, who just played in this last window. But obviously, they also have some incredible attacking talent that you have to pay attention to, including Temwa Chawinga, the Malawian. Sorry, I don't know that one. Demonym for Malawi? Anybody? Malawian?
The Malawi citizen.
The Malawi citizen, Temwa Chawinga. Nichelle Prince, very good Canadian players. There's Dabinia, obviously, an absolute legend at this point, 33-year-old Brazilian. So Haley Mace.
Still criminal she wasn't in the Olympic team, Dabinia, last year. But
yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. I don't know much about the Brazilian politics of it all, but interesting game. Again, San Diego has. They did this on purpose, right? Made waves. They've made waves for good reasons and bad reasons.
Yes.
That game is taking place in San Diego. They have been getting good crowds out of Snapdragon Stadium. That's for whatever bad things have happened in San Diego. And I'll let you go read about that, Jill Ellis and other things. They have done a good job of selling that team and marketing it, and they'll have a big crowd, I'm sure.
Before we move on to the next game in the Fab Four, Urias Tosh in the chat saying it's Trinity Rodman's League, and we're just watching it. Game number 2 here in this weekend's Fab Four games in the United States. We move to Major League Soccer, LAFC versus San Jose. It's the 8th versus 9th in the West, but both teams coming off the back of big wins. I mean, Joseph Martinez hat trick. Will we see more of that, or is that just a thing against DC?
Let's be clear. LAFC coming off a win in the league, not coming off a win in all competitions, because they went to Fort Lauderdale and lost that tie to Inter Miami. What I would say about this game is we expect LAFC to be a contender, right? And they want to get over that disappointment of the Champions Cup and what happened in Fort Lauderdale. And San Jose has markedly improved. Now, they're still not a great team, right? Charlotte handled them on the East Coast 4-1. They've lost to Minnesota. They've lost to Colorado. it's not like they're just taking the league by storm. The 6-1 over DC United, context, DC pretty bad.
Ash-
DC pretty bad.
So
But I
just
think
the fact of DC just throws asterisks on it, no matter what.
yeah, I think there's an asterisk on a win over especially a 6-1 win over DC. But I do want to see if Joseph Martinez can keep it going. Like, I do want to see if that's a thing that Bruce Arena has cooking right now for San Jose, because they want to get back in the playoffs. They want to be a contender. They got to win against good teams like LAFC if they're going to do that. And again, LAFC is not playing up to their standards, right? With just 9 points from 7 matches. When you look at the rest of the matches in the league, it's the reason we picked this game out, because there really aren't many marquee matchups. It's a lot of poor teams against much better teams. And there may be some narratives in MLS, including what happens with DC United if they lose at home to FC Cincinnati. But right now, that's the game of the weekend in MLS, I think.
Game 3 of the Fab Four of the weekend slate across North American leagues. USL Championship, Charleston Battery versus Pittsburgh Riverhounds.
Yeah, this one is this is a little bit maybe more your lane, Rob. So maybe I'll let you jump in. But what I think is notable about this, 2 coaches I really like, Ben Pearman, and Jenny jumped in with a Hail Caesar when I mentioned his name earlier. If you don't know the Caesar, do you know the Caesar story, Rob? Do you want to give us the Ben Pearman Hazel Caesar story?
He's I don't know it exactly. I just know it stems from his leadership at Michigan State University when Detroit City FC was still in their amateur era. He was the coach there, and I know that was the nickname for Coach Pearman when he was the DCFC coach. I don't know the exact origins of it. I just know that's when they called him back in the day. I don't want to say anything out of line if it was something to do with his Spartan connection. I don't know if Caesar and the Spartans have anything to do with each other. Probably not. But I do know that was the affectionate nickname Northern Guard gave Ben Pearman at his Detroit City FC time.
Yes, he was nicknamed Caesar. They say Hail Caesar when he was there. Ben Pearman was Detroit City FC's coach when he was also an assistant at Michigan State, if I remember my timeline correctly.
Yeah.
He parlayed his success at Detroit City into a job in Memphis. Memphis was a mess of a club and obviously now no longer exists. And he left and went to Charleston, which is a long-standing club in USL, and he's done a very good job. They play attractive, attacking soccer. That's why I wanted to mention Ben Pearman and the Charleston Battery. And on the other side of the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and we are still our research department is still trying to figure this out, but it's possible that with the departure of Peter Ramirez from Sporting Kansas City, Bob Lilly of the Pittsburgh Riverhounds is the longest tenured manager in American soccer, in American professionals. It's possible.
You're saying that with the biggest squint I've ever seen you say anything. You're like, I don't know. If you squint hard enough, that might be true.
Well,
yeah, at least his 8th season there.
Because I'm trying to remember. Okay, so after Burmese, obviously Jim Curtin was a long tenured coach in MLS. Then Peter Vermees. Brian Schmetzer's at 8 years, 258 days. He's the longest tenured coach in Major League Soccer, based on my quick research here. I don't know if Bob Lilly's got him beat, but it's probably really, really, really close. So, and I don't think there's anybody else in the USL champion. I mean, USL championship coaches don't tend to last more than a year or 2 or 3. So I would bet that he's the longest tenured coach in USL by a long way. And then he would be right there with Schmetzer. So again, interesting that you've got 2 coaches kind of on opposite ends of their careers, but guys that are very respected. Charleston Battery, longstanding club. Pittsburgh Riverhounds, obviously done some things too. Haven't quite gotten over the hump in the playoffs. They always seem to run into a wall when they get there. But I'm interested to see what we've got here, because this is number 5 and number 6 in the Eastern Conference in the USL Championship.
Before we move on, Father Time in the chat throwing out DCFC versus Phoenix, a great game he's looking forward to. That was in contention for the Fab Four, so don't think that we did not consider that one an exciting game for Saturday night.
We just didn't want to do too much Michigan. Michigan had to be limited in its impact on the show today.
Yeah, so everyone knows, peek behind the curtain, Jason does try to he's the Michigan filter. He's the capologist
right.
for Michigan related content on this program.
That's what it is.
But before we run out of time, Fab Four, the 4th game of the weekend, we're looking at USL League One AV Ulta versus the Chattanooga Red Wolves.
Yeah, and we picked this one because because both these teams had dramatic victories in the Open Cup in the last round. Antelope Valley is what AV stands for out there in California. Antelope Valley Alta, AV Alta. They had the big win. That was, over LAFC too, right? It's not the MLS club exactly, but it's still a big one for them to win. We talked about this when we did our video of the best 5 moments from the round with our man Yogi Barr. Jimmy Villalobos scoring the winner, and then Villalobos took off his shirt to celebrate, got red carded because it was his second yellow in the 120th minute. That was pretty dramatic. And obviously Chattanooga Red Wolves won on penalty kicks over the Chattanooga FC side. They had never played before in Chattanooga FC's building. We had the flag planting. I'm pretty sure that at least I have not verified this independently, but someone claiming to be the flag planter, the adult in that situation, has been in our comments on Morning Kick Around, and I would really like to reach out to that individual and see if we can get a story of why he went on the field, how it went down, what all the vibes around Chattanooga right now.
We should share that comment at least, because that's funny, because the way he described getting past the security guard or lack of effort needed to get onto the field there in Chattanooga was entertaining. And when you were like, oh, why don't you come and tell us a story? He's like, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, if he trespassed, we don't want to get him in trouble. That's a good point.
Further note about the Red Wolves, around the time of the Open Cup, there was an announcement, April 4th, in fact, Carlos Bocanegra, American soccer stalwart, joining the board. He's a board member at the Chattanooga Red Wolves. So,
okay,
interesting note.
Get back in the game after got fired in Atlanta. Getting back in the game somehow. And since we're talking USL Championship and lower levels, mention this as well. DWS 1967. Tommy Sohn got fired by the Birmingham Legion after a rough start to their campaign. So, and I like Tommy Sohn a lot. I'm not saying he deserved to keep his job, but that is a little sad for me.
So that is the Fab Four for the weekend ahead. The second weekend of April should be plenty of good stuff to check out. Thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe to the channel. There's also memberships available now. You can give a thanks, and then you can follow along on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, Twitter. You can write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. You can also support on coffee.com/morningkickaround. We're going to take a quick break and come right back with today's hot topic here on Morning Kick Around. Hot topic of the day for Friday, April 11th here on Morning Kick Around. Major League Soccer has been exploring a calendar change, and they've kind of teased it a little bit. Will Major League Soccer change from the spring to fall to a European standard of fall through spring? Well, they had a news release on MajorLeagueSoccer.com. The board of directors has authorized a second phase of exploration into a potential move to the international soccer schedule. What do you think of this announcement at this time, Mr. Davis?
Well, let's first talk about the timeline. So yesterday morning, Sports Business Journal published a piece that said that MLS owners could vote on a calendar change on that day, yesterday. Then we got word that there was no vote. They tabled the decision to switch the calendar. Then we got this statement from MLS. I just hearing a couple of things from people reporting from the inside or with sources. Apparently there was some support, but they just don't feel ready. That's what's indicated here, that they don't feel ready. Second phase of exploration. This caused a pretty vociferous and energetic reaction, Rob, on both sides, I think.
An excitable reaction, maybe.
Excitable even. A Javier Mascherano-like reaction is what this caused. Yeah. I think people, I think there's kind of two different kinds of people when we talk about this kind of thing. You have the ardent fans, the people who might buy season tickets every year, people who've been going to games for a long time, the people who kind of base their calendar around their Major League Soccer team. And a lot of them who live in Minnesota or New England, or, pick your northern climate, even in the Midwest, obviously, in places like Chicago, that this is Columbus, Cincinnati. This is kind of a scary thing to think about. When am I going to go to my games? How is this all going to work? I don't want to go if it's freezing cold. All those things, right? That's the immediate reaction. Then you have boosters. I think boosters are people who have a vested interest in Major League Soccer growing beyond what it already is, who think of MLS as a vehicle for American soccer's place in the world, right? And therefore tie their own validation in soccer to MLS on some level. I'm getting a little dime store psychology here, but I think this is probably at play. And boosters, many of those people are media, right? Many of those people have been covering, like myself, covering Major League Soccer for a decade plus. And those people think MLS needs to do things to get more popular, to get bigger, to better integrate with the world of football. And this calendar switch would have been a thing to do that. And if you've got a World Cup coming to the United States in 2026, and you're going to stop your league for that, because why wouldn't you? It's on home soil. Well, then you can use that as a launching pad, as a runway into a calendar switch and start in the fall of 2026 and flip everything over.
Yeah, there was some wide speculation that maybe they do it right after the World Cup, right? And then maybe there's some sort of a unique one-off spring tournament or something before the World Cup, if anything. And then,
Could be.
the World Cup ends in July, August, and then you roll into the new calendar. That seems like a natural shift, but that's not going to be the case.
No, and I did say on Blue Sky, and follow me on Blue Sky at Davis Jason, I said I thought this was a little bit of paralysis by analysis, right? They were just in their own heads thinking about it, trying to figure out what the details of this would be, right? Now, there is an example, and I do think a little show and tell is important here. There's an example of a league who is making the switch. And just to illuminate, this is Dan Orlowitz. He's on Blue Sky. He's also on Twitter still, on X. You can see his name there. It's Aishi Teru Tokyo. I'm sorry. My apologies to Dan for butchering his screen name, but you can see it there. He kind of explained the way that the Japanese league has done this, the J League. He said he was surprised. The sudden way in which the MLS calendar change storyline emerged was weird. Plus, I was summoned. He's talking about like his timing in Japan to comment on this. He gives some background. There was a league prior to the J League in Japan that did operate on a fall to spring calendar. So there's a precedent in Japan. If you're like, oh, well, Japan's done it, we should do it. There's a precedent that we don't have, because soccer in America has always been on the schedule it currently is, as far as I'm aware. And I do want to dive into the history of that and research why. I think I have an idea, but we need to go look in the history. Dan goes on, okay? The reasons that were being debated in the 2000s, they've been talking about this for almost 20 years in Japan about switching their calendar. So they were talking about the transfer market. That's an issue in Major League Soccer, right?
Yep.
That we talk about this a lot, that it's not the windows don't line up. The windows line up. It's just they're different windows. The midseason and the preseason windows are different. They're flipped. So when an MLS team's like, we're building for the season, let's go get a player in Europe. And that European team's like, we're in the middle of our season and we're pushing for our European place or to avoid relegation. No, we're not selling you our guy. That's a problem for MLS in terms of the growth of the league. And also, I think outgoing transfers, Rob, right?
Well, before we move on to the outgoing, the incoming, players get burned out even if they do get them at a certain times. They then equal if they come in halfway through, they then play a full season. They play a year and a half straight, and vice versa. Or if they come in the summer, they're gassed from playing a full European calendar season. But go on with
it. Yeah. So again, Dan with some background, a JFA president, pushed hard to get the J League to switch. The league basically said, sorry for the language, no, citing the challenges of holding games in winter and the economic impact that holding no games in July, August would have on clubs. That's exactly what we're talking about in MLS. It's the same thing, right? It's July and August are very hot months, but they're also months you can go outside as long as you try to find a way to stay cool. You can go outside, you can go to games, and your kids are out of school and all that stuff. And, I think part of the story here is that MLS has tried to migrate from the kids' day out to more of an ardent soccer supporter culture, trying to grow that. There's always been some supporters element, but now the league's trying to become more of that, because those are your committed fans who are going to buy your gear every year, going to buy tickets every year, going to watch you on TV no matter what. That's who you want to foster. In this case, if you switch this, you do lose that family dollar. And is that a problem? Is MLS capable of making that switch? Then Dan goes on. There was more people pushing the issue, more leadership pushing the issue in Japan. Real push came in 2022. So this is also a thing for MLS. Their next real push came when the AFC announced that its club competitions will be switching to fall to spring for 2023 and encourage domestic leagues to align. MLS has a problem, right? We're celebrating Vancouver reaching a semifinal of the CONCACAF Champions Cup by taking down 2 Mexican clubs. The reason that's so unique is it doesn't happen. One of the big reasons it doesn't happen is because MLS teams are in their second month and Mexican clubs are deep into their Clausura campaign. And that thing unbalances the competition enough that whatever advantages Mexico might have in terms of talent is amplified. So if MLS wants to compete, and I imagine that this is one of the talking points in the boardroom, like, hey, if we want to win the Champions Cup on a regular basis, we got to make this switch. It would help with player acquisition. It would help with players joining from Europe and not playing a year and a half, as Robert described. It would help. How about our teams be ready to play Mexican opposition when these games come up? So there's that. This is Dan describing what goes down in terms of temperature. Obviously, climate change is part of this story. So we'll see. There's more there. This is for the next segment, so I'll get that off the screen. But that is where we're at right now. That we're MLS is not yet ready. You saw that Dan described a multi-decade process for Japan to finally pull it off. MLS has only really been seriously talking about this for about a year and a half at most. I think it came up in a story in midsummer last year. Then Don Garber addressed it at the State of the League at MLS Cup in December. So if you were like, oh, why aren't they doing this? Get your crap together, MLS. They probably haven't done enough work. Now, you could argue that 5 or 6 years ago, they should have started this process. But I don't know that was an easy sell to owners at the time. I think we've crept, the Overton window of this question has moved quite a bit as MLS gets closer to maybe breaking through, or, the TV deal with Apple has maybe made this an issue, right? Because of ratings or lack of attention. I don't know, Rob.
I'll have to, you've done it to me again. I'll have to Google the term Overton window. Have to look that one up here, Jason.
Okay.
But so whenever we bring up this topic of the MLS European potential switch, the conversation tends to go like, this is the worst idea. There's no way that half the teams could play half the season. And then there's the other crowd saying like, you can take a break and just dress a little warm during those periods. Like, is there somewhere in the middle where this lies? Like, some people say this is an absolute non-starter, and some people say this is not a big deal. I'm not really sure where to land here, to be honest. I know obviously it'll be awkward, but I feel like there might be somewhere none of the above. Like, I almost think that the Mexican sort of, I don't know if they translate to the American audience, having like 2 separate seasons within a year, but like just playing in the two, because it's either way too cold or way too hot in the summer and the winter in North America. Okay. What about the spring and the fall? Seems like a realistic shift.
Hold on. So there is actually a people have done the work to kind of imagine what this would look like. And one of the things that comes out of that is you're basically playing in the same windows. The windows are not all that different. So I'm going to throw this up. This is from a friend of mine on Blue Sky, who put this together when this discussion was, I think, originally happening, and then shared it again last night. Kevin Wallace, who's at the Post Cincy, does a Cincinnati podcast, FC Cincinnati podcast. So the key here is that the blue is break, winter break. The green is games. I believe the red, let me pull up his key again. The red is FIFA match dates, right? Okay. Which MLS has typically played through on some level. And then you've got the yellow, which is playoffs in his conception. Now, also mentioned from this meeting, Rob, is potentially redoing the format of the playoffs again.
Well, that happens every year anyway. That's a yearly review,
right? So again, the windows are basically the same. I think it's for people who advocate to do this. It's let's put our most important games in a time of the year and a part of the calendar where they're not competing with American football, right? A lot of this is in response to something rather than sort of being proactive for your own sake. It's sort of like, well, if we want soccer to grow, we want MLS Cup to get attention. Well, you can't be going up against the SEC title game, like that kind of stuff, which I get. but I don't think this should be your guiding principle. It's like, well, can we get out of the way of football? Because obviously a lot of your regular season games would be going up against American football if you do this. Now, the thing that I think stands out most for me is something that they're talking about in the chat. Shout out to Matthew here. I'd 100% rather play in cool weather. Playing in snow and ice isn't soccer. So he's talking about maybe the winter. But I also saw one. Okay, here it is. Soccer is better in cooler weather. I played tons of games in Michigan cold and SoCal heat. I run way more in the cold. I would rather there be, now look, again, you can't play in Montreal in February. You're going to have to figure out a break. You're going to have to figure out schedule manipulation. I don't know about the competitive balance and how screwed up that would be. That's a tipping point. That's an issue. But if we're talking about the quality of play and Major League Soccer selling itself, absolutely you'd rather have games in cooler weather. Those midsummer games in places like Orlando, they're murder. They're terrible. They go at a walking pace for most of it because you just can't run for 90 minutes in that heat. So I think maybe that more than anything should be something to think about as we look ahead to this, which again, it's not happening right now.
Your thought about the playing in the hot of midsummer reminded me of a game I covered for the Chicago Red Stars, where it was just like a blistering 95-degree day at Toyota Stadium. And as the game went on, the shadow of the stands went on half the field. And guess which half of the field that most of the action was being played in? It was hilarious. In the shadows. It was in the shadows. The whole second half was kind of wild, and they admitted so in the post game. Like, is that coincidence? Like, no, we were passing it into the shadows so we could get out of the heat. But thank you everyone for tuning in. If you are watching and not subscribing, what's the dealio? Join the MK Ultras. Hit the subscribe button and contribute and participate in this show we call Morning Kick Around. And I got a note. Your Michigan content cap, your radar wasn't going off very strong. You featured not one, but two Michigan-based commenters in a row in one segment. So
we are big in Michigan. Because of you, we're big in Michigan. So I maybe I should just drop any pretense of trying to limit Michigan content.
Follow along on social media at MKickaround, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com, and coffee.com/morningkickaround is another place where you can support. Thank you to the supporters and the followers there. They got access to content not seen by others, and I gave a shout out and read the names to those supporters over there. So thank you everyone who's contributed both on coffee.com and then now the ability to be a member on the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. Oh, you know what also we forgot? We got a whole flotilla. We have a whole calendar of content. You can also put us in your pocket as a podcast. Search Morning Kick Around on your favorite audio platforms. We're going to catch our breath and come right back with our final segment of the day. Big question here on Morning Kick Around. Big question of the day. It is Friday, April 11th. This is Morning Kick Around. I'm Robert. He's Jason. Question of the day, will USL eventually be a bigger TV product than Major League Soccer? This stems from its first two broadcasts of the season. USL had some pretty impressive numbers. The front office is encouraged. This is pulling from a Forbes article from early this morning. According to league sources, the match between Phoenix Rising, San Antonio FC drew an average of 444,000, topping out at 760 over the latter portion of the match, and that's enough to make the regular season clash the most watched match in USL history. The last year's even more so than last year's nationally televised championship game, and in line more or less with how USL or MLS regular season games on Fox used to perform before the Apple deal. What do you think of that?
It's pretty big. It's pretty big. Now, again, this is from a Forbes article written by Ian Quillen. If you want to go read it, go look for it. It's titled, "What Surprisingly Strong USL TV Numbers Last Weekend Tell Us." And Ian tries to analyze these and be fair about them, because I do think context is always important. And what he says is part of this may be about the timing of the game, that there really wasn't anything else going on sports-wise in that moment. You had a NCAA women's basketball championship game between UConn and South Carolina that did 8.5 million viewers, by the way. Lots of people watched that.
That's
But
numbers.
UConn dominated that game, so it got pretty boring because there wasn't any real competition. So did people then,
Change channel.
maybe flip over, see there was a soccer game? Oh, look, it's interesting. What is this? I've never seen it before. USL Championship.
Colors
Okay.
and movement. Colors and movement.
Yay. I mean, it's sports. And I do think look, I don't think this means this means that like there's some massive appetite for USL Championship. Like I don't know that I'd take it that far. But I definitely think that there's something attractive about the league for people. Like I definitely think it means that people are willing to give this league a chance, that they're willing to take a look at it as a competition and say, again, maybe out of curiosity, how long does that last? I don't know. It was pointed out to me by Dan Vaughn from Protagonist Soccer, who was on my podcast, The Best Soccer Show, last night. You can go support that too. Listen to it. It's out on
He's
your
been on this
podcast
show
feed.
too. He's been on this show.
Yeah. Dan's been on this show too. Dan was saying that one thing is that he sees covering USL is that USL is still a national league, or USL is more of a national league than MLS is, in the sense that people after 25, 30 years, and obviously with new clubs coming on, people latch onto their MLS team. They watch their MLS team. That's it. They don't go looking for the national broadcast of teams they don't care about. They're not looking at that. This is not like the NFL. But maybe because there's still this counterculture vibe to USL. MLS has moved out of the counterculture realm. They no longer get to claim that anymore. It used to be a thing. But maybe because USL still has this, we're all in this together, people are saying, I'm going to go actively choose to watch the CBS game to boost the numbers to make it better for my league. It could be a thing.
It's kind of wild how since this announcement over the last couple months or so, USL has become the we're all working together sort of entity, when probably like pre-COVID and that sort of era before, the sentiment among like the grassroots soccer people was not necessarily pro USL. There was cases of USL moving into places like Chattanooga and otherwise seemingly like parachuting in on places that shown that there is an appetite for soccer and kind of swooning in on those. And here we come, fast forward to now a couple of years later, and this is the the darling of the American soccer crowd.
Yeah, this stuff shifts. These are shifting sands at all times in American soccer. I got into this with Dan last night on the Best Soccer Show as well. This idea that, who the good guy, who the white hat and the black hat are in American soccer is always shifting and changing. So what I would say about this, as somebody who loves American soccer, and I'm not saying I love MLS more than I love USL. MLS has been around. MLS has made a dent. MLS was the league I started covering. I got paid to cover MLS. Of course, I have an affinity for MLS. But I also like the USL, and I've talked a lot about the USL over my career. I mean, spent entire days on my old radio show talking only about lower division soccer and making space for the USL because I want to see it grow. I think this is good for everybody. Like, I think this should be recognized as something good for soccer, period. If you want to read into it that it means the USL could be bigger than MLS, I can't tell you you're wrong because I don't know. I doubt it very seriously. I still think stadiums matter. I still think production values matter. I still think name recognition of players matter. I think all that stuff matters. But there should be space, particularly in some of these markets. Now, Phoenix and San Antonio being the two teams is fascinating because those are two big markets by USL standards. Phoenix is probably the biggest market without an MLS team in the country. And I know Detroit's right there too. So you're talking about two of the biggest markets that USL has. These are the only soccer teams in those two individual towns. San Antonio is well established. Phoenix has made noise in their market by being creative with their stadiums and signing Didier Drogba and having musicians in their ownership group and all those things. So these two teams are higher profile than most USL championship teams, Rob. I think that's a fair statement. If this was, I'm trying to pull out of obviously, look, last year
Loudon.
Sure, Loudon is a exurb of DC. Probably not a lot of people like, I got to watch Loudon. I will say that, again, championship game for USL championship, was pretty good on television in terms of ratings. It was pretty good. And that was Colorado Springs and Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Rhode Island's got a market size that's probably bigger than you think in Providence, but Colorado Springs is not a big place. So, there's something here.
Something here indeed. And just the fact that Forbes is providing content and covering the lower leagues in the United States is kind of a little bit of an indication of a culture switch here. And maybe those numbers, I think that that sentence from the article is quite telling, saying that the numbers that the USL produced in these 2 early season games that were broadcast, saying it's in line more or less with how MLS regular season games on Fox used to perform. And it's like so USL and CBS have already found that established audience. Like the audience has already switched the channel over to that. But the big question is, which hasn't happened yet for Major League Soccer, and we'll see if USL and the Pro Rel element elevates that. Can it go beyond that 1/3 of a million that seems to be the average for an American League game? What is it that drives it consistently above 500,000, maybe into the millions? How many MLS games got over the million viewer mark? I can't think.
Again, I don't know that you can divine what it is about MLS that prevented it from doing better on television or prevents it now. Obviously, the paywall is a major factor here, because even if you talk about MLS Cup and, look, the MLS Cup numbers were worse than these numbers that the USL Championship got for a regular season game. Lots of people were watching on Apple, I'm sure, last season, or maybe not. I mean, again, maybe people were like, whatever, I don't care about these two teams. I'm not watching this game. It could have been, absolutely could have been a thing. Although the market size, LA and New York, would indicate at least some people would be tuning in. I don't know. Is this something? Because this is what happens. People want to use this as a cudgel against MLS. Look at the USL numbers. MLS is trash. Except I'm not sure I understand why.
I think it's the same people.
but what is it about? The people who are choosing to watch USL are rejecting MLS. I don't understand that logic necessarily. I don't know that always follows. And again, if they are just rejecting MLS, is it because they've done their research and they don't like single entity? I find that to be a big step, a big leap to believe that that's what's going on. Or, again, what is it that that the idea that USL is being chosen over MLS? What is it about MLS that's turning people off? I'm sure MLS would love to know this, if indeed that is the dynamic. I'm just not sure it's the dynamic, because if you put on the right two teams in a women's college volleyball match, you can get 500,000 viewers. If it comes after a certain game that's on ESPN. And I've watched softball. I watched Little League Baseball. Are those the best versions of those sports? No. Does that, if I watch Little League Baseball but don't watch a Major League Baseball game this season, does that mean that that Major League Baseball is trash and I prefer Little League Baseball in terms of the grand picture? Probably not.
Yeah,
right?
But you're the interest for anyone and yourself in Little League is the story behind it, because the window you're watching it through. These are the kids. They've had an amazing year, and these moments will stand out forever. The context in which it's in. So how does that view with USL? Oh, this is the league that is trying to make some changes in the landscape.
Okay. And I know I love you guys. Thank you for being here. But I know there's some bias at play. Just pointing it out. This is Father Time. MLS is a fake product, and it shows. How is it a fake product relative to the USL, which is also a closed professional soccer league in America? What is it about? When you say it's fake, what does that mean? And it shows. How? If I'm a casual viewer who's not intimately familiar with the way MLS operates, why would I look at that and go, that's fake? I don't think I would do that. If I didn't know anything about soccer, or I only knew a little bit, I wasn't, again, reading up on how the governing documents run, why would I make that jump? Everyone knows MLS is not real soccer. MLS refuses to embrace the game in its purest form. How? Tell me how. I don't know what that means. What purest form? USL is not the purest form of the game. It's not even close.
I mean, we don't really necessarily. If we want to get to the purest form, you'd probably go to your local amateur side.
That's a quality judgment that has no meaning in 2025. It has no meaning. What is purest form of the game? Like, I don't
Company
know what
versus
that
company,
means.
right? It's company versus company at this point, and no company is pure, right? I mean, it's not like I feel like if you're seeing purity, that is going to see the kids' game down the street, right? I mean, that's just people playing for laughs and giggles and some exercise. That in its essence is purity. Is no structure, no money, no anything connected to it. But I guess I understand the sentiment. Maybe that is a, would you say, a biased or
No, look,
it's the loaded statements, but at the
you're
same
allowed.
time, there are some
You're
things
allowed.
about Major League Soccer that rub people the wrong way,
Sure,
like
sure.
the
I
way
get it.
that they deal with expansion, the way that they've pulled out of the Open Cup, the almost
But
trying to
again,
be the
we're
only
making
soccer that
hold on.
exists in the
But
country.
this is soccer exceptionalism, which I find hard to swallow. This is idea, and I love the game. This is my life. But this idea that soccer is special in some unique way, that there's no justification for doing it the way MLS does it. Right? When people who follow the NFL never make these claims about the NFL, or they might, but most of the time they're still like, I'm going to watch the Browns this weekend. Give me more pain. But it doesn't matter to them that it's billionaires backing the league. It doesn't matter to them. It's again, it's this thing of, and I know that that's very American, and this is partly about rejecting an American idea of soccer, right? This is partly about everybody else does it different, and we want to be more like them because they're legitimate and we're not. Because why? Because the leagues are older. That's what it is. I again, I get very, I get very interested in the angles at which people come to this conclusion about what's real and what's not. If people have been supporting the same MLS team for the last 29 years, they've been buying season tickets, they've been going out, they supported their club, they're waving banners and chanting and everything. Are they fake fans? I don't think so. I don't think they're fake fans.
I could see that from a place, I could see that perspective from a person that doesn't live in a Major League Soccer city. Like, Major League Soccer has this appearance that, like, if it's not one of our teams, it's not legit, and it's not us. They seem, from a non-MLS city or non-MLS fan, it does seem like they are trying to own the game from top to bottom outright, and marginalize anyone that's not within that Major League Soccer system. But if you go to a game and you're in the stands, that is very real. There's nothing fake about that to the people, the locals, the fans. Like, that experience is real. But I kind of understand the perspective for a place that has been rejected for an expansion bid, or as a smaller town team that literally has no opportunity to have a team sniff it. I could see how they could be jaded into a viewpoint such as this.
No, okay. No, that's again, like what you like. I'm fascinated by the reasons people make these statements and sort of come to this conclusion that one is real and one is fake, or one is legitimate and one is not, one is authentic, one is not. We romanticize this sport in ways that, just as an observer, fascinate me. I'm not judging your decision to not like MLS. Don't like MLS. That's fine. Just again, we're here. Like, I'm just here thinking about these things as again, as American soccer grows and changes, and we wrestle with this stuff. And I guess part of it is too, Rob, I don't like American soccer fans pitting themselves against each other. And we do it so much, and it is to the detriment of the game in our country. It absolutely is.
Yeah, the comment section where people slam MLS, that's fake stuff. When it's like, why is that fake to someone who's a season ticket holder to Columbus and they go every single weekend? Like, that's not fake to them. And then in the same right of, like, slandering someone who's a lower league soccer fan, like, oh, have fun in your high school stadium with 200 people. Like, that is real to the people that go to that. Yeah, let's not pit against each other. Let's lift all tides of soccer supporters in the United States. And you know how you can do that? By joining in the conversation. If you're watching this and not subscribing, subscribe now. Morning Kick Around on youtube.com. We are climbing towards 2,000 subscribers, and that would be a great number to hit on our path to 50,000, right? Is that that's what we're going towards,
that's
right?
What we're going for. Yep.
And then that would be great. With every follower, more things open up to us in the YouTube world, and let's continue to do that. Great to have you along with the ride. Thank you, everyone who subscribed already. Follow us along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and the Blue Sky. You can write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Thank you to everyone who's written a note. I've done my best to reply to a few of those. We've gotten some good notes over there. We are also a podcast. Search Morning Kick Around for on your favorite audio platform and take us on the go or in the car, because you don't want to necessarily watch the YouTube while driving down the expressway. And then you can also support the show at coffee.com/morningkickaround. There is some exclusive content there for anyone who has supported. And if you didn't hear your name shout out, go back to the beginning of the show. And I listed off all the supporters we got there on coffee.com/morningkickaround already. Whew, that's Friday's show, I think. What do you think, Jason?
We did it. It's done. We kicked it for sure.
All right, Friday's been kicked. Plenty of soccer is on the way before we come back on Monday morning. So until then, everybody subscribe and enjoy your soccer.